So talk me through what it was like stepping into the manager role on an initial interim basis. What was that like for you?
Yeah, no, I was like quite excited to step in and be given an opportunity in an interim basis. It was difficult because obviously we were coming off the back of sort of two heavy defeats. In the space of our sort of last defeat, we'd lost a couple of players. As soon as a manager goes, there's a lot of change. There was a couple of 7 days that come in for certain players, and they wanted to go. So it was just about trying to get. We had a charity cup match against Hadley, or a county cup match, sorry, against Hadley, and it was just trying to get a good squad out. We managed to do that. We managed to get a win, which was we needed for confidence and positivity. And then it was about building towards the Banbury game, and the Banbury game was a real difficult one. I sort of remember for sort of large parts of the first half we were under the cosh, and it was really tough. And I think we come in at 1-0 down, and then second half under the cosh for sort of 15 minutes, rode our luck and dug in deep, and then managed to turn it around and got a win. And I think from there we bounced. We got a 1-1 draw with Biggleswade Town, and then we ended up beating Harborough 3-0 at home. And yeah, so it was a successful interim period. It was one I sort of enjoyed. It was difficult, but yeah, it was enjoyable.
Do you think there's a lot of pressure on interim managers maybe to get kind of that immediate success, like the new manager bounce kind of thing?
It depends how you look at it. If you're looking to get the job on a permanent basis, then there's a lot of pressure on, because you're basically having a live sort of trial or audition. You're trying to make sure you can get the job. And when I sort of took it on the interim basis, it was just about helping the club out. I wasn't sort of looking at trying to take the job on permanently. I was happy if they'd offered me, but it wasn't my sole goal at the time. It was just to sort of steady the ship while the club worked out what sort of route they wanted to go down with regards to the manager position. So there was no real pressure on me, but I can imagine sort of other managers, or if my situation was different where I actually really wanted to be Hitchin manager at the time and saw this as an opportunity, then there probably would have been a lot of pressure on, because you're thinking, oh, if we lose or if it's not great, then I'm probably not going to get the job on a full-time basis. But I think we helped out in my side of things. I felt like I was supporting the club, and it actually paid off because there was no real pressure on myself. I didn't put any pressure on myself. Results worked out all right, and then luckily for me, I was offered the job on a permanent basis.
Yeah. Do you think that Hitchin was adequately prepared for Step 3 football when they went up? Because obviously getting relegated, things like that, obviously not great, but do you think there was enough preparation for it, or do you think it was kind of a bit all over the place at times?
I think it was difficult. I won't lie. Sort of since I've been involved at Hitchin, I've been involved in Hitchin for sort of 6 years, and we've always sort of struggled near the bottom of Step 3. So it's always been sort of tough. We had one sort of season where we finished 12th, and it was quite successful. But other than that, like, we had a year where we got relegated and we got a reprieve, and that was difficult. And then sort of the season I took over, we probably weren't prepared as best as what we should have been. We didn't take the reprieve and the opportunity as well as what we should have, but it was difficult circumstances, and it was made more difficult by the tough start we had. I think we went 7 losing in a row, and it was really difficult. So in a way, for us to sort of get relegated, as much as you don't want to be relegated, I think it was the right thing for the club to sort of go down, have a sort of reset, and then hopefully get promoted, which is what we did. And then we're hoping we're in a much better position now to attack Step 3 with a bit of momentum, belief, and a sort of positive mentality.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier about kind of you had some 7-dayers go in after the management had left. How easy is it for clubs like Hitchin? Obviously, Hitchin are massively well supported compared to some clubs at a level. Do you think it's easier for Hitchin to keep a hold of players at Step 3 than maybe other clubs?
No, I don't think so. I think, unfortunately, I'm massive. I'm along the same lines as yourself. I think Hitchin's a massive club. I'll probably go as far to say it's a sleeping giant, because it's sort of dripping with potential. But we're well supported, you're well looked after, we've got a great team of volunteers, and whenever I speak to potential players or staff members, that's my selling point. It's about whole community, it's whole club, it's not just the 16-man squad or the team. It's a bigger selling point, and that's what I go down for. And if players don't want to be a part of that, then no problem. Like that's it. I'm fortunate with non-league football recently. There's a lot of clubs that maybe not so well supported, but they have some people that have got deep pockets and they're willing to put some money into the playing side of things. It's probably not really sustainable, but that's always going to appeal to players at the end of the day. If they can get well paid for something, then they're going to try and do that, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it just means we try and target the sort of players that obviously understand that it's about a community, it's about bringing a club together, and that's sort of our selling pitch. I wouldn't say it's easier for us. I'd probably say it's a little bit more difficult, especially the league we're in and the sort of locality of the teams. It's a big demand to sort of go up to Birmingham every other weekend, and we probably have sort of one or two sort of localish games, wherein if you play for a Birmingham team in our league, you probably only have one or two games that are a big distance away. So I wouldn't say it's easy. I'd probably say it's harder, but we're happy with the way it is. It doesn't change. We like the way we try and recruit and that, and hopefully it'll be successful this season.
Yeah. At what point during the interim time did you kind of get a feeling that you were going to get the job on a full-time basis? Was there ever a moment that really clicked for you?
No, I think the big one was obviously winning the first game. I think that was key because we hadn't won many games. Like I say, it helped that we won a county cup game. That was a good start, that we had a county cup game that we were able to win. And winning the first league game was massive. And then I just felt sort of leading up to the Harbour game, we'd obviously won a cup game, a league game, drawn a league game, and I just felt in the Harbour game, if this is a positive result, then the club will probably want to look at me as a candidate. And to be fair, there was a bit of backing there from the supporters because they were happy with what they'd seen. So we went and played the Harbour game, and on winning that, then I sort of found out that week that the club wanted to offer me the position as manager.
Did you feel the expectations on you change between the interim and the full-time?
Yeah, massively. So as interim, I always looked at it as like I was just there, as it says in the name. I was just there to steady the ship and wait for someone else to take over, and that was sort of what I was planning for. So as much as I wanted the club to do well, I never saw it going to the end of the season. As soon as they offered me the manager's job, I just felt the pressure was massive because I'm thinking we're in a difficult situation as a club. We're in the relegation zone. We're sort of cut adrift a little bit. And I felt there was pressure to get games, and that's probably showed in the first game after I got announced as manager. I sort of knew before, but we lost the next game. We lost 1-0 at home to Stratford, and like I say, the pressure for me, I felt that day the pressure was massive, and it sort of built up from there all the way through till the current day. I feel the pressure is obviously massive to make sure we're successful.
How do you try and deal with that pressure on you then?
I'm still learning. I don't think there's an actual answer to that. I probably struggled at sort of step 3. There was a lot of sleepless nights and a lot of stressing over certain things. That was tough, especially we had a little run that sort of got us back in touching distance with everyone else, and then we lost some key games and some crucial points. And towards the end of the season, I sort of knew we were relegated. But then I think when we went down to step 4, as much as I felt it was going to be good for the club, that I felt there was a bit of pressure on to make sure we got promoted first time. And I think it was always going to be difficult. You see a lot of teams get relegated at any level, and they have double relegations, or they finish mid-table. They don't do as well as what everyone's expecting. And I just knew that we had to try and make sure we were right near the top, and that pressure was massive. But I sort of dealt with it a little bit better. I think to the players, we sort of set small targets rather than one big target. Obviously, we had a end of season target of promotion, but we broke it down into smaller chunks, which made it a bit more bearable and less stressful because no one game was bigger than the other. When I first took over, if we lost the game, it always felt really important, really big. But obviously, it's only worth 3 points, and that's probably where I learned this season that if we were to drop points or lose a game, it's only maximum of 3 points you've potentially lost, and you've got an opportunity to get those back in the next game. So yeah, that's probably how I've dealt with it now, and hopefully, like I say, I'm still learning. I'll be stronger and stronger as this season goes on.
How did you deal with the relegation personally, and how did then the club deal with that as well? Obviously, relegation's hard for any club, but you were coming into a situation which was already relatively like dire. Did you deal with it differently, maybe to how you would have maybe if you were there the whole season? It had been entirely like you in charge.
No, I still took it. I've been at the club for 6 years, so I never looked at it as like, well, this isn't my relegation. Like at the end of the day, I'm a manager. I had more than enough time to turn things around and keep the club up. I couldn't do it, unfortunately. So no, the relegation hit me hard in the fact of like I felt we failed and I'd let the club down. But it's one of those things. I think like we knew with a few weeks ago of the season that we would most likely be relegated, and it gave us a bit more time to sort of plan for the following season. So as disappointed as I was that I wasn't able to keep the club up, like I say, it was a blessing in disguise because we had a few extra weeks to sort of prepare for step 4. And like I say, fast forward to today, we're in a much better position as a club. So as down as I was during that period, and as much as I was to blame as anyone, there's no excuses of like, oh, I took over quarter way or halfway through a season. There's none of that. Like, I fully accept responsibility for the relegation. Fast forward to today, and we're in a much more positive place as a club.
Yeah, did you find it hard to rally players at all? Obviously, you kind of didn't you. Not saying you don't have anything to play for, but knowing likely you would be relegated, was it hard to keep players kind of wanting to chug along, or were they pretty like up for it regardless? They just want to play their football.
No, they wanted to play their football and they were sort of up for it, but it's difficult when you sort of know that you're most likely getting relegated. It was tough. I think the turning point for us was we'd had some good results, and then we'd lost a few players that'd gone off on trials and stuff like that, and then we sort of lost 2 in a row, and then we come back and we beat Banbury 1-0, and I thought, oh, we've got a run of fixtures now where potentially we could get a little run together. And the following week we went across the lowest off, who were in the relegation zone as well. We lost that, and I think that was the pivotal moment for me. Once we lost that, it was really difficult after that to get going. The following week we were at home to St Ives, and we were excellent. We were 1-0 up. We were dominating. Probably should have been out of sight. And then our keeper made a mistake to make it 1-1 just before half time, and that just sucked all the energy and life out of us. And it just seemed like from that point on, the sort of group deflated. And I don't think we won another game from that point. And there was still probably 10 games left of the season. And we didn't win another game from that point. And it was tough, and it was harder. If we were to, we've been a lot of positions where we'd be 1-0 up, or we should have been 1-0 up, and then we get sucker punched up the other end. So they say when you're up there, things go for you. When they're down there, they don't. And unfortunately, that was us. We struggled to sort of get everyone believing that we could get results and we could turn things around, because there was a lot of games we should have been leading, and we ended up losing 1-0 or 2-1. So yeah, that was a difficult end to the season. And results-wise, it was very disappointing.
What do you think your personal biggest learning point was from that season?
I think the personal thing is just like no one game's bigger than the other, and I think like I say, we lost certain games, and there might have been, my emotions might have felt that they were bigger than that. But I think like you just got to think, okay, we didn't win that game, we'll focus on the next one, and that would be the massive sort of learning point for me, to break it down into smaller chunks and have sort of realistic short-term targets that accumulate to a bigger one. So like I say, I feel I'm in a much better place. I feel the club's in a much better place this time round. I feel we've learned a lot. We're still obviously learning, but we've learned a lot from our last experiences and what's sort of needed at the level to compete, and we feel we're on the way there. So only time will tell once we get actually into the season, because we're not really going to learn too much from pre-season. But once we get into the season, then we'll learn a lot more, and we'll see where we're at.
Yeah, so moving into last season, how were you kind of feeling looking at the league and the teams that are in it? How were you feeling about your chances of a top six finish?
Well, I felt we'd be up there just because I felt we recruited and retained a good squad, and I felt it'd take its time because there was a lot of new players trying to understand new ideas and concepts and a way of playing. But I always felt we'd be up there. I felt we'd have a slow start. I felt we'd be up there, but good teams. I knew Hartford were an excellent side. Biggleswade FC. We always thought Leighton would be right there just because they had the momentum from the previous. They had a massive change towards the end, and he was very successful, and they'd kept a lot of their group. So we were there or about. So you've got Biggleswade Town that have sort of come down with us, and we thought they are to play against. So we knew it was going to be really tough, but we felt we wanted to aim to win the league, and we felt we'd always be in and around the playoffs. Obviously, the start we had to the season, I think we had 6 games, we won 3, drew 1, lost 2, and it wasn't the best start. But we always sort of believed that it would click, and once it does, we'd be right up there. And from that point on, it did click, and we propelled ourselves right up the table. So yeah, it was. We looked at it as it was going to be a difficult task, but we were always confident we could be right near the top end of the table, and we just need a bit of consistency and maybe a bit of luck to be in the sort of winning position or the promotion position.
How tough then was it with obviously Leighton being on the ball nearly all season, not really giving up much? Did it make your job a lot harder having to constantly almost be battling that kind of top of the table spot with them?
Yeah, no, it was tough with Leighton. Obviously, they had the momentum from the previous season. They had an excellent start. We didn't have a great start, so they obviously had a slight advantage over us. They were very consistent, and they were, like I've said all along, they were worthy champions. They got 100 points and scored a lot of goals, second best defence I think in the league. So they're worthy champions. I just felt like the only difference probably between us and them is, for some reason, it just seemed like because Hitchin may be a bigger club, teams when we played them, bigger crowds and stuff like that, especially away games, teams would give an extra 10%. So it just felt a little bit more difficult. And like I say, we done well to sort of catch Leighton at one point, but where they were really good, they were really consistent. We dropped some silly points throughout the season. Where Leighton, we always felt they would drop points, and to be fair, they never really did. They had I wouldn't even say a blip. They dropped very few points, and then they had some difficult games towards the end of the season where we always felt like they'll drop some points. They won't get maximum points from these games, and they did, and they fully deserved to win the league. So yeah, it was difficult, but it was nothing short of what we expected. And like we say, we felt like we had a very good season. Unfortunately, they had an excellent season.
Yeah. So looking at the playoffs now, like obviously you had a good run in the season, got to the playoffs. How important was a home playoff tie for you?
Yeah, it was massive. I'm not going to lie. If we had have gone away in the playoffs, it wouldn't have mattered. We would have felt like we're still confident. But to be on our pitch, it's a really nice pitch. We know how to play it quite well. And to have the backing of our supporters even more, it was humongous. That was really key for us. So it was vital that we secured second. And at one stage, like I felt like towards the end of the season, we pretty much had to win every game because Biggleswade FC were on an unbelievable run from when they lost 1-0 to Leighton. I think they basically won every game from when they lost 1-0 to Leighton until the end of the season. So we knew we had to make sure we finished above them, and in the end, I think we finished 3 points above them. So it shows how tight it was. But yeah, being at home was key to our success in the playoffs. It's what we wanted. It's what we aimed for once we realised we couldn't win the league, and it was massive in helping us to promotion.
Yeah. So during the kind of final days of the season, you end up losing 5-0 to I believe it was Tame. Did
Yeah,
that
it was.
did that create kind of a nervous energy going into the playoffs at all for you?
Well, I'll be honest, it didn't go to plan. So we'd always we had to play a game on the Wednesday night before the final day of the season. That was a week to the playoffs, so we sort of put out an all right team for that one. We won 2-0 away to London Lions, but we picked up a couple of injuries, and one injury was to Taylor Ryan, who was our top goal scorer, and it ruled him out for the rest of the season. So on the Saturday, we didn't want to risk anyone else, so we made a lot of changes to the starting 11, and I think the aim was to obviously put out a team, give people an opportunity, rest some and protect them for the Wednesday. But also it felt like if we were going to play Tame, we wanted to make sure that we gave them a game on a Saturday that was really tough. So then potentially on the Wednesday, if we were to play them, they'd be a bit more tired than us bringing in fresh players. Obviously, it didn't quite work to plan because we went 1-0 down quite early on, and I still felt confident that we'd make a tough day's work for them and we'd have to keep them honest and true. And then I think about 10 minutes later, I think about 14 minutes in, we went a man down and that just sort of ruined the whole game. It was a very hot day. And to be fair, Tame won 5-0, probably could have been a lot more. We were miles off it after that point. And I did feel a bit worried then because I felt like Tame were able to take a lot of people off after 60 minutes. They sort of cruised through the game after half time, and it wasn't a hard game I expected them to have. But so we went into Wednesday knowing it was going to be tougher than what we'd sort of hoped it had been for, because we knew we could have played Tame or Hartford. But we knew Hartford would have had to have been working hard on the Saturday because they needed to win. We wanted to make sure if we were playing Tame, they had a difficult game on the Saturday, which they didn't. So, yeah, it made the Wednesday a lot tougher than what we'd probably hoped for.
Yeah, so during the playoffs, how did your match day preparations look compared to maybe the rest of the season? Did you change up what you were doing, or did you kind of have a bit of a superstition about it, keeping it all the same, yeah?
No superstitions. We just kept it the same because we always tried to focus on ourselves, and we believed in what we were doing would be successful, and we wanted teams to try and worry about us rather than us worry about them. So the only change was we trained on a Monday because the game was on a Wednesday. We did the same sort of session as we normally would, no sort of real differences to it, and we approached the Wednesday exactly the same as what we would any other league game, and yeah, like I say, it worked out, and we did the same for the playoff final. We trained on the Saturday, and then we attacked the playoff final the exact same way we'd play any other game.
Yeah, so you got a home playoff final, massive crowd there. I believe it was what, like 3,000 or so.
Yeah, that's correct.
How important was it to have that kind of home final with your massive array of fans supporting you? How much did that lift the squad?
Yeah, no, I think it lifted massively. I think every manager I spoke to sort of said they wanted Hitchin in the final because it'd be a big crowd. And to be fair to Beagles LFC, they had a huge following with them as well. So it made it a real sort of atmosphere. But it was like you knew it was going to be massive from the start. I think the warm-ups, the ground probably was already half full, and players are getting clapped onto the pitch in the warm-ups. Normally, don't matter how big our crowd is, a lot of them sort of arrive sort of 15 minutes before because they've been in the bar and that, but everyone wanted to get their spot, so the warm-ups felt there was an atmosphere at the warm-ups, and at the start of the game it was really loud and that, and yeah, it made it a proper sort of game, and that's what we wanted. So yeah, no, home advantage, home crowd was key, and I say it got us over the line in the end for a deserved promotion.
Yeah. How important was it to have players like Stephen Gleeson in the squad? Kind of those more seasoned professional players, been around the game quite a lot.
Yeah, no, we needed Stephen Gleeson was key. Obviously, he didn't play as much probably what he wanted to play, but he helped us throughout the season. There were some key games he was involved in, and it got us going. Even just having him training around the building was good for the young lad. And Charlie Briggs, that's got good experience of Step 4. We've got Josh Jackman in that has come down from Step 2. He'd been captain at Slough, so there was some real good experience there, and they were key. Before, when we were at Step 3, quite a young squad. We added some key experience in last season. It helped out in the tough moments, the pressurised moments, and these experienced players managed to help the younger lads out, and they complemented each other really well.
I know it's a bit of a silly question in a way, but is there anything you would have changed throughout that season at all that maybe would have put you in a better place?
Well, I think if I break it down, it's probably just games. I feel like we played Barton Rovers early on in the season. We drew 1-1. Sort of shoulder injury at the time. We didn't realise as bad as what it was, so we left him on for a period of time. In that period of time, he cost us a goal, so we drew 1-1 there and we dropped some points. I think we went away to Leverstock and and we lost 3-2, but half time we were 1-0 up, and it was the only game where we took the lead all season and we lost. So there's some changes that if I was to have that game over again at half time, I would have made. Flatwell Heath, we lost 2-1-0. And there's a change just before they score because we were down to 10 men because of an injury that I always think, well, if I'd made that change for the injured player and not sort of giving him a bit of time, then potentially they don't score and it's sort of nil. There was a few things that across the season in games I always sort of thought, oh, if I had my time over again, I'd change. But like I say, it wasn't anything from day to day that we did that I felt we needed to change. As it said, we scored over 100 goals. We had the best defence in the league, even though we lost 5-0 last game of the season. We won the Hearts County Cup as well. Yeah, we won the Hearts County Cup as well. So we had an excellent season. So I can't fault anyone for what we've done. It's just like I say, Leighton had an incredible season and they deserved to win it. But I still like to think we had an excellent season. I'm very happy with the way things went.
You touched on it a little bit there about your defensive record. You conceded the least amount of goals in the league. What would you attribute that to?
The hard work of the whole team. I just think the defence, obviously, and the keeper will get the plaudits because that's what happens. But I think everyone contributed to everything. We scored a lot of goals and our defenders contributed a lot, whether it was goals or assists. But when we defended, I think the whole team worked hard as a collective to keep the ball out the back of the net. And that was massive to our success because we kept games tight, especially at the start of the season where we hadn't really got going. We won games 1-0, 2-0, and the clean sheets were big parts of it. And then it created belief that if we did go 1-0 up, we wouldn't lose because we can see goals or chances. So yeah, that was instrumental in the fact of us being successful and just building that belief and confidence and momentum. And like I say, even towards the end of the season, up until the Tame game, I think we'd had something like 5 clean sheets in a row. So it was huge for us and it gave us a strong foundation to build off.
So obviously heading back into step 3 next season, what do you plan to learn from your first time round? Is there any kind of key things you're looking at now for this league and going, we're not going to do this, not going to do that, need to do this instead, kind of thing?
There's a few things from the way we play that just need to evolve and adapt from last time. I think last time, I'll be honest, I felt between both boxes we were very strong. In both boxes where games were won, we weren't good enough. We wasted too many opportunities in the attacking one and we gave away so many silly goals that were from unforced errors or mistakes. So if we can correct those two or adjust those two things, we'll give ourselves a much better chance. And then sort of between both boxes, we've got a few things we just need to develop and evolve on. And if we can do that, we'll find ourselves in a great place and who knows what we can achieve. Yeah, now there's a few we'll need to work on throughout pre-season, obviously as the season starts, but we know sort of the areas as things stand we need to sort of focus a bit more attention on and if we can do that, then I'm sure we'll have a positive season.
Yes. How do you plan to kind of secure your safety as early as possible? I know that's the aim for every club in every division is to make sure they're safe as soon as they can, but how do you want to go about doing that?
I just want to be consistent. At the end of the day, like we just want to have a points target per month and we want to work towards that. So yeah, you want to secure safety as soon as possible and you want to try and finish as hard as possible, and that's our aims as well. But at the end of the day, we will have the belief that if we can work towards a points target that's achievable each month, then we'll be confident as long as we work towards that we'll be safe. So that's the way we're going to approach it. So there's no sort of like, oh, we're going to go gung-ho from the first game of the season and absolutely go for it. We're just going to make sure we can try and build some strong foundations and just be consistent. And if we can do that, we'll have the belief and the confidence to make sure we're towards the right end of the table than the wrong end.
Yeah, are there any particular grounds or teams that you think are going to give Hitchin a particularly a tough run?
I think every team. I don't think there's ever an easy game. It's that old cliche, but I don't think there's ever an easy game because everyone's at step 3 for a reason because they're good enough to be there. I think there's some exceptional teams like Real Bedford are very exceptional in what they do, and I expect they'll be right at the top end of the table. But even the ones you suspect to be near the bottom end of the table, there'll be tough away trips. They'll be really fighting when they come to Hitchin, and I think a lot of people will look at Hitchin and think we should be getting 3 points against them. So there's no team I'm really think is going to be really difficult, or any that I think are going to be really easy. I think each team has their own strengths and weaknesses, and they're going to give every game their all, and every game is going to be a difficult one to navigate.
Is there going to be much of a mentality shift in the squad? Kind of, obviously, last season you won obviously far more games than you lost. Where this season it might be a bit tighter in that aspect. Do you think there's going to be a bit of a change of how the players view the games, things like that, or have you got it pretty set?
No, I think we've got a winning mentality. I'm not saying probably not going to win as many games as we did last season, but we're going to approach every game the same way, and we're going to make sure we keep the momentum and the winning mentality, mindset, belief, confidence. We're going to keep it going in the right direction. To do that, like I say, I'm sure we can have a positive season. So, yeah, we know it's going to be a lot more difficult, because I think the jump between 4 and 3 is huge, but we're fully prepared for it, and we believe we can have a positive season.
Yeah, so what has your off-season so far kind of looked like for you personally and for the club?
So for me personally, I literally, the day after the playoff final, 6 a.m. the next day, I had a flight out on a holiday. So, but I spent a lot of time on the phone trying to recruit players and stuff like that. I've had a lot of meetings with potential players. Probably been the busiest one I've ever had. So yeah, there was a lot of work to be done, and a lot of chats, and it was very time consuming. But we're sort of through that now. We've sort of built a squad that we're happy with, although we're always looking to strengthen. And then from a sort of a training standpoint, we were back in sort of last week. We were back in. We've only done 2 sessions to date. We've got another 2 coming up before our first pre-season friendly. So it's where we expect to be at. We're not expecting much from pre-season. We've got some very difficult games, but where we're different for last year is we know a lot of the group. The group knows the way we want to play, so it's just little tweaks. When last pre-season, it was a total rebuild, so it was a lot tougher this pre-season. We're not going to learn loads about the group, but it will just be about us getting up to speed and peaking at the right time, really.
How do you go about selecting your pre-season friendlies?
Well, try and reach out to a few professional clubs to give the lads the experience of playing against professional players. It also helps the club generate some extra income. So they're the first ones we try and secure, and then we just make sure we have a few sort of non-league friendlies that will be competitive and tough ones, and try and keep it as local as possible, because I don't want the lads doing loads of travelling in pre-season and then having to do loads in the season. I want to keep it quite local pre-season, because obviously the demands and the expectation in the season is a lot tougher. So yeah, it's literally try and find a few professional games, which we have done, to try and generate a bit of extra income for the club and give the players the opportunity to play against professional clubs. And then it's looking at a couple of non-league friendlies just to give us a tough game before we start the season.
In 3 years from now, if we sat down and had this conversation again in 3 years, let's say, where would you want the club and yourself to be at?
Well, I just hope, one, I'm still manager, because if I'm still manager of the club, then things have obviously been going well. But I just like us to be as high as possible. Like, I'm not going to set over ambitious plans. The club's got a lot of work going on where they're doing ground development and that, and hopefully in 3 years' time that will be basically done or to on its way to being complete, and it'd be great to be involved in that. But as long as we can finish high as possible, we don't want to go back down to step 4, so we want to make sure we stay at step 3, but we want to make sure we're actually competitive at step 3. So in 3 years' time, if we're still at step 3, as long as we're towards the top end, as in like top half of the table, always with the shout of sort of playoffs and that, I think the club and supporters will be more than happy. And then I think once we look at getting our ground development done, that will help propel us on to sort of the top end of the table, which would be really good for Hitchin, because I haven't been there for a few seasons now.
Finally, to kind of round us all off, is there anything you would like to personally promote yourself, or anything that the club would like to promote at all?
No, I just think from a club perspective, we just hope that we can keep the backing of the supporters. Season ticket sales have been going really well, which is pleasing. We've got a real younger generation of supporters now, which complement the older generation. And now, because we've got enough younger supporters, if we can keep them as Hitchin supporters, then the club's always going to keep going and be in good hands. So it's just about us being realistic with our expectations and being positive. And that's what happened this season, even in the down times, whether it was the first 6 games of the season or when we dropped silly points. It was disappointing at the time, but the club kept moving forward and everyone pulled in the same direction together. And there was a real belief, togetherness and positivity. And if we can keep that this season through the good times, but especially the bad times, then we'll have another positive season and we'll see where it takes us.
Perfect, mate. Thank you very much for coming on. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Okay, take care and good luck for the season.
Cheers, mate. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.